Hi, how's everybody doing? It is Wednesday, April 13th. Thanks for joining me. Welcome back to the channel. I'm here in my kitchen, as you can see. And I had planned or wanted to come on a couple of times, do a video and come on a couple times in the last few days. And, I've been trying to mess with the technology. And, those of you that have been here since I started my channel, you know that I've been messing with it on and off and learning it, of course. And I've been trying to figure out why the audio and the video hasn't caught up to one another when I play them back. And I know some of you made comments that it's just not syncing up. And it is super, super annoying. I know that. So I've been trying to work on that and I haven't been able to figure it out. So I've got some new equipment that I have to install. I'm hoping that'll help. And I've gotten tried out a couple of new astrology softwares. I previewed a lot and I was using a subscription online until I could figure out which one I wanted to use because I didn't want to invest in something until, I knew it was going to work for me. So I've tried a couple and I finally settled on one. So I'm learning that and yada, yada, yada. Anyway, so here I've decided to record this one on Zoom in my kitchen. So here I am. I just don't want to let the first few days of the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction go by without chatting about it. And I did talk about it last week in reference to how I felt it was actually going to go overall, the overall energies for the month of April with Jupiter and Neptune and all of the Pisces energy. And I said that I felt that overall it was very positive and uplifting, and I still believe that. I think that the possibilities there are endless, and overall, it certainly is much more positive than the energies that we saw last year and the year before in Capricorn and Taurus, and Uranus and Saturn and all of that. But like I said, I wanted to look at and promise that I would come and look at the actual charts for the days that the conjunctions occurred and talk a little bit about what might be challenging about it. I'm a realist and I tend to think through things logically. And I think we all know that with anything, there comes challenges. And I think it only makes sense to look at what the challenges might be, because that could be our reality. I've had people say, oh, Jupiter Neptune conjunct, gee, all I got was a stomach ache, or, my garage flooded, my water heater broke, or something like that. And, those are small, little life annoyances, but those are things that can happen when Jupiter and Neptune are prominent in the sign of Pisces. Pisces is a water sign. We could see things like, strange snowstorms up in the Northeast. It snowed the other day, like really snowed. That's typical Jupiter and Neptune in Pisces. That describes it perfectly. And I think that when we look at the chart, and I'm going to pull it up here, I've got a couple here, one for the 11th and one for the 13th. So we can take a look at what the challenges might be, because there are some. And of course, here I've already drawn on it, getting ready for this. So I will undraw on it very quickly, and we can take a look at what's going on here. So we do have, this is the chart for the 11th. We have Jupiter and Neptune conjunct right here, obviously in Pisces at 23 degrees on the 11th, which was Monday. And very uplifting, represents spirituality and expansion of, can represent things like indulgence as well. Jupiter represents pregnant, expansion of, so it can represent, babies being born. Very positive in that Neptune is the higher octave of Venus, so that's unconditional love. Jupiter is the higher octave of the lesser malefic Mars, the masculine energy. So it's really awesome that, they've come together, and it's right with possibilities for sure. So definitely a good time for creativity, and definitely a good time for tapping into intuition, finding what your personal divinity is. Jupiter represents spirituality in many forms. Neptune, otherworldly. So it could be psychic practices, meditative practices. It could be astrology, anything that represents your personal divinity and the expansion of that is supported in the current planetary energies. So that's all good. We do have Saturn here still at play, and that's where some of that is one thing that starts to inject some of the challenges into the environment right now. And, Neptune Aquarius is all about social responsibility. And when it was conjunct Mars, which is what I talked about last week, it was like a delay based on, what we were responsible for. That social responsibility element in the sign of Aquarius is still very present in Saturn sitting in Aquarius. And all the planets talk to one another. They are square, Saturn squares the nodes, and the nodes are karmic, as well as Saturn being karmic. The nodes are fateful. And we have Jupiter and Neptune here also aspecting the same nodes. And so this nodal transit of South Node Scorpio, North Node Taurus until July of 2023 is huge. And as I look through the charts, I see that Saturn plays a very big role in the nodes of change. And that's exactly what they are. These nodes are asking us to change things and take a look at things that we don't normally want to look at, or have things be presented to us that we didn't know were there. As a society, I think that we are being asked to come together, grow and expand and elevate our spirituality in the way that we look at things and the way that we look at one another. Pisces is the collective unconscious. Aquarius is the collective conscious. So it's a merging of both, in my opinion. That's what I see here. And I see the universe pushing us towards doing that. And when we are trying to move to something greater, something bigger, there's a bit of cleaning out the closet, I think, before we actually get there. And the universe is saying, okay, you want to it's sort of like walk the talk, I kind of feel. And it can create some tension. So, for everybody who's feeling hopeful about Jupiter, Neptune, and by all means, feel hopeful. I am keeping my fingers crossed and feeling very hopeful as well, because I think a lot of grace can be given for sure. And a lot of really miraculous things can happen during a time like this. And that's the intention. But I think that there is a level of reality, Saturn, in the collective and in how we operate within society, that the universe is asking us to take a look at. And so I've also talked to people who have said, I'm dealing with a drug problem in my family that I wasn't aware of, or an illness that came out of nowhere that we weren't aware of, or I feel like I'm losing a family member. All of those things are also Jupiter, Neptune, sextiling and trining the nodes. Jupiter and Neptune is endings. Jupiter can hasten an ending, sort of move it along, or it can be an ending that was just a divine intention. If we're talking about dealing with drug problems, this is a very big time for that, because Neptune and Pisces energy can cause us to want to escape. Can go into a dream world. Sometimes, obviously, it feels better in a place where you're not actually looking at the reality of your own life, and so the state of society. So, I think a lot of us that have dealt with things like drug addictions in our family know that um, that disease is the product of uh, pain that we haven't dealt with. That's a South Node in Scorpio um, characteristic as well. So when we are looking at this and we see that Saturn's involved, it's like, well, there's pressure there. There's pressure to push the things that we need to clean out of our closet to the surface before we can move into something that is much more secure and comfortable for us. What if we planted seeds and we want them to grow, and we want support from the universe to help us do that, and the universe is there to do exactly that for us, has to have been done in a responsible way. And I think that it's a consideration of one another, but also a consideration of what is really going on in society. So this Jupiter-Neptune conjunction, although does provide divine deliverance and support, can also bring some sadness to the reality of our lives. And I think that that's the point here. That's what we're supposed to be looking at. And like I said, I don't mean to be the killjoy, but there is this element here that I see in the charts that tell me this also comes along with a serious dose of reality. And I think it's important for us to acknowledge that. Now, Jupiter-Neptune conjunct, I think there are certain things that we can focus right in on. And I think that these conjunctions, this is a rare conjunction. It hasn't happened for a very long time. It's every 13 years that Jupiter travels. The last time it was in Pisces was 166 years ago. But I think these big transits and the way astrologers look at them, they pick things that historically they will refer back to in the future as to, oh, yes, this was representative of the time that this conjunction happened. And with Jupiter and Neptune coming together historically, and I've done a lot of research on this, what we see over and over and over again is that there is very, very much an expansion of artistic and musical endeavors, spiritual endeavors. So I think that this Jupiter-Neptune conjunction in Pisces will be no different. And I'm working on something to talk more about that, because I think there will be an emphasis on that. And it will be what we want to look back on. So let's take a look here before I switch the chart. Also, in addition to having Saturn involved here, we also have Pluto involved. And Pluto on the 11th was squaring Mercury, and that can make us feel very laser focused on something in particular, which could be good, like almost obsessively, right? Or trying to really focused on trying to create something or change something, rebirth something. And that can be a very good energy to go along with our attempts to actually look at our lives in a real way, hold on to hope, and tap into our divinity and intuition, and stay focused on where we want to go, what we want to grow from these nodes: South Node, Scorpio, North Node, Taurus. but it can feel very, very intense. So at the beginning of the week, there may have been a start of the week where you were just very, very focused mentally on something in particular related to your to the material world, to your life and how it looks and is structured in general. So we also have two, and it's not on this chart, and I think I'm going to switch the chart here just because it's easier for me to follow the energies and talk about them when I can actually see the planets transiting. I don't script anything that I do. I just talk about it as I see it and as I feel about it. So, and boy, you know, as time goes by, it gets a little bit easier talking to a camera, but I am not going to lie, it is very much a challenge to talk to something that's not actually there. So I am going to stop this share and I'm going to throw up the chart for today and get us into the 13th. And it just takes a second. So thanks for being patient. All right. Okay. So here we have the chart for the 13th, which is today. I'm going to make that a little bit bigger so we can see it. All right. And as you can see, we have still down here, obviously, Jupiter and Neptune conjunct. They've moved a degree since the conjunction on Monday, still emulating the same powerful energy that they have together, still sextiling and trining the nodes, as well as Saturn, still squaring attention the nodes of fate as well. What we do have, and we will have up until right before the full moon, is a conversation that is going on with the Sun and Pluto. Now, the Sun and Pluto, that can cause a lot of tension. That can make us feel like we are being controlled or under control of something, or just somehow very frustrated based on a level of control or obsession. And it's interesting. I've been watching some of the news the last few days, and, for a while, I really don't watch the news just because I get tired of hearing it and seeing a lot of the things that go on. But what's interesting when you're following astrology, and I found myself doing, is really following the events that occur, and then trying to relate them back to the transits. And it's just amazing how often that actually the energies show up. So, if we're talking about things that we might see that are challenging, and a square like this, Pluto squaring the Sun, we might have some acting out, some aggressive and really destructive action, or conversations or thought processes with Mercury involved there, based on the fact that people feel suppressed, or something that is coming back to them that was representative of wounding in the past, or somehow they didn't feel that they were heard or that they were wronged. And it doesn't mean that anybody that commits an act of aggression can be justified because maybe they felt suppressed in some way or controlled in some way as a young child, or they've got some kind of a drug problem that's coming up, and life is just sort of like squeezing them in between a vice, or whatever the case may be. The reality is that these energies can cause that. And when we think about the nodes here and Pluto and all of the things that I was mentioning, where I think the universe's intent is to bring things to the surface individually and collectively so that we can see them and deal with them. It's like the good, bad, and the ugly, Neptune and Jupiter, the good, Pluto, Saturn, in a tough square to some really strong energies, the bad and the ugly. And that's the reality of the society that we live in. But what we need to deal with and look at, and in the evolutionary process, figure out fundamental ways of actually creating change. We have so many different categories of people that have endured so many types of lifestyles that, we get into a bubble, our own little life, and we don't realize what's going on outside of us. And therefore, we don't always have empathy for it. Neptune and Jupiter can help us create empathy. Saturn wants social responsibility. When we look at people that are struggling or people that are angry or acting out, why are they doing that? What have we done as a society to cultivate an environment where people don't feel safe talking about their pain and their wounding, because they don't feel they're going to be supported, and many times they're not. And we see these things coming out, and with these nodes present and these challenging energies present, we see things like the shooting in the subway on Monday. Terrible, terrible things, but that's what we see. We see and feel things during a time like this, where there are a drug addiction problems that come, out, from a family member, that we are having to deal with, or an illness, or we see things in society that are coming out that we are like, that most of us are appalled by. But the reality is that there are real human beings that are living that, and these social situations need to be dealt with. Yes, we have our own karma, Pluto, the planet of karma, to deal with. But we have to look at it in terms of, what society's karma is as well. And it all comes together. It's emerging. It's a dissolving of boundaries. Neptune dissolves boundaries. So I think yes, there are some definite challenges here during the month with Neptune and Jupiter conjunct. We could see frustrations, people feeling really, really under a lot of pressure because of their personal circumstances. We could see endings in terms of, drug overdoses, or endings as a result of illness. Jupiter expands, so that could be the expansion or growth of something in somebody's body that just kind of comes out of nowhere, the nodes, those kinds of things, or secrets exposed. This is a very revealing time in the planetary energies, and not by accident. It's revealing our social issues, our spiritual issues, asking us to clean out the closet, take a real look at things, but at the same time, tap into our divinity using the Neptune and Jupiter and Pisces energy, tap into our spirituality, expand that out, share that a little bit, pay attention to what's going on around us and in society in general, do our part. And doing our part, I think, is paying attention to those constraints, those restrictions, those lessons, the things that we might be feeling restricted or frustrated by in our own lives, because each person individually that faces or confronts the reality of their life and their situation and does their absolute best, with good intentions, with compassion, and with love, there is divine deliverance, divine intervention to help that. And that, that takes a village, right? A Saturn in Aquarius, social responsibility. So there could be a lot of things come up. Like I said, we could see endings. We could see the growth of things that we don't want to see grow. We could also see the elevation of the collective, of collective spirituality, expansion of creativity in a way that's actually influencing the community in a positive way. It's going to be a mixed bag, but I wanted to come and talk about how there are challenges that come along with this very, very beautiful energy. And they could be challenges personally and challenges that we've already seen a lot collectively. So keep your eyes open for other people. I think, this idea too is to open your heart to a higher level of seeing and knowing and spirituality, and also be very careful and discerning as to what you believe. Again, tap into your own personal divinity. My personal means of divinity is astrology. That is what helps me process and understand and see things logically in my own life, as well as what's going on in society, and everybody's practice of how they get to a place of understanding and elevation in their heart and in their mind is going to be different. So now is a good time to do that. Really come back to yourself, deal with the things in your life that you may not want to deal with, because Saturn is going to ask you and me and all of us to do that anyway, and says, listen, if you do the right thing, there's some support here to add some magic and some miracles and some grace, while we're all trying to deal with these very difficult things, and again, participate in the evolutionary process. So I hope that makes sense to all of you. And I really, really appreciate your being here. I'm going to stop the share on this chart. I appreciate your being here and listening. And I love looking at the astrology and talking about how it all comes together and what the possibilities are. This Jupiter-Neptune energy is present the entire month. We have full moon on Saturday, I believe it is the 16th, which will be really exciting. And then we have a full moon on the 30th. So we actually have 3 lunar events this month. Happens every now and then. We have 3 this month. And I think we're going to see a lot of changes. These nodes in Taurus and Scorpio, the next year and a half is going to be very, very transformational. Pluto, and life-changing, I think, for a lot of us and for our society. I don't think it's going to be easy, but I think that there's hope and something different and better, on the other end. So just keep doing whatever it is you're doing, the good work that you're doing, planting your seeds, growing things that are beautiful and secure and comfortable, and putting, your bit of magic and compassion and love out there in society, and the universe will bring it back to you. I will see you soon. Talking more about this energy for the rest of the month. And like I said, I'm trying to put something together that will focus on what I think this conjunction will be known for or looked back on for in a positive way as we move into the future and look at more of these energies. So thanks for coming. I really, really appreciate it. If you haven't liked, subscribed, and shared, please do that. It helps me grow the channel, and I'm very grateful for all of you that do that, and for all of you that subscribe and have stayed here. So I will talk to you soon. Take good care. May the stars forever be in your favor.